We don't like doing this at all.
Never!
Bring me the boar worms.
No! Not the ballworms!
Disc jockey, drop the bass. Now the heads.
Words mean things. Now this should not be a particularly radical concept to people, but it seems that it is. You'll often find an argument is dismissed as being just semantics, but semantics are very important because the meaning of words is really important. Language is essentially a consensual and group hallucination. We all agree basically on what terms mean, and so we can convey meaning to one another. It's really not that hard to understand. If you make up your own meaning for the noises that you're making, no other fucker's going to necessarily know what you're saying. So if I say squirrel you have no idea what it means, even if I've made up something in my own head. Right? It just becomes out as a random set of syllables. That's one extreme. There are other problems though, in that words sometimes have multiple meanings. So as an atheist and a skeptic, I often find myself in conflict with creationists. And we have a problem there because the term theory has multiple meanings. Okay, so in one sense it can mean like a hunch or a hypothesis essentially, an idea, a guess as to what's happening. But in a scientific context it has a very specific and defined meaning. Well, all of these definitions appear within the dictionary, but for some reason creationists like to fixate upon the idea that a theory is just a guess, that it's less powerful than a fact when theories explain facts. Anyway, that's kind of getting off the point. So, right, proper communication depends upon mutual understanding of what terms mean, not fucking with what terms mean, and understanding which, if there are multiple meanings, understand which one of those applies. Okay, so this is why semantics are important, and if you're arguing about anything, they may in fact be the most important thing. You need to agree on terms beforehand. When someone talks about language policing or the changing of definitions being Orwellian, it's not hyperbole. In 1984, the meaning of words was changed, a whole new language was invented in order to eradicate, banish, and change ideas. It was an ongoing project that would eventually lead into newspeak. It's another aspect of control. So by controlling language, the idea is that you can control ideas. By shifting meanings, you can banish certain meanings, you can excuse certain behaviours, you can discourage others, you can make certain concepts impossible to express. So when people describe these kind of things as Orwellian, that is a real and genuine concern for a lot of people, especially if they care as deeply about language as I do. Now, this Orwellian principle of redefining meaning has found, unfortunately, a home in the modern regressive left, in the social justice warriors. They are willfully and deliberately trying to redefine terms, simultaneously to condemn others and to excuse their own bad behaviour. So let's just quickly run over two of these things that particularly irk me.
I, an ethnic minority woman, cannot be racist or sexist towards white men because racism and sexism describe structures of privilege based on race and gender.
Isn't that cute? But it's wrong!
No, you awful, terrible human being. What you're trying to do there is excuse your own bigotry and prejudice. Okay? Racism is prejudice, antagonism, etc. on the basis of race. Power relationships do not come into it. Privilege, and we'll get to that in a sec, has fuck all to do with it. Sexism, prejudice on the basis of sex. Ageism, prejudice on the basis of age. Power relationships do not come into any of these things. It's purely the fact that you are prejudiced against someone based on one of these qualities. That's it. Okay? Now, there are sub-definitions, or specializations, or categorizations. So, What's going on here is they're trying to redefine isms in such a way as to excuse their own bigotry. Alright, there is no doubt that people like Bahar Mustafa are deeply, deeply sexist and deeply, deeply racist. It's just that the targets of their sexism and racism aren't the kinds that we normally give a shit about. Look, let's illustrate this using a class/wealth paradigm, okay? So, poor people are amongst the most racist. Okay, this goes for American society, this goes for US society. People who are poor and impoverished, who are struggling to get by, they are most likely to hold racist views, to be hostile to immigrants, and so on. Why? Because they've got fuck all and they have to fight for everything that they have, and they see these people as interlopers. Does this white underclass wield any power? No. Nobody cares about them. Nobody gives a damn about them. Their votes don't matter to most people. They have no institutional, financial, legal, or other power whatsoever to wield, but they are amongst the most racist. And most of these people would not contest the fact that this white underclass is racist. That's one gigantic spanner in the works. What they're trying to do is to take a specialized sub-definition and use that to redefine the term as a whole. What they're talking about is institutional or systemic ism, not ism itself. You're just wrong, and you're trying to change it for all the wrong reasons. Just put systemic or institutional in front of it and there wouldn't be a problem. But no, you've got to try and redefine the term because people point out your bigotry. Well, nobody's fooled.
What about white privilege? White privilege is the unearned advantages of being white in a racially stratified society.
Isn't that cute? But it's wrong!
No. A privilege is a special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group. White people in our societies are not granted any special rights, any special advantages, or any special immunities at all. We all have the same rights as each other, guaranteed under the law. If a white person breaks the law, he goes to jail. If a black person breaks the law, he goes to jail. Yeah, provided they're caught and everything else. Now, you can argue that members of certain minorities are disadvantaged, but that doesn't mean that the people they're being compared to have advantage, okay? The police have privilege because they are granted special rights and so on, above and beyond those the normal citizenry are given. The police are allowed to speed, they're allowed to go through traffic lights, you know, in limited circumstances, they have the right to take a life, all the rest of it. They have privilege. Okay, white people do not get that kind of thing. They don't. We do not live in 1980s South Africa. We do not live in 1940s America. It's just, that's not how it works. Okay, we don't get anything special. And you can argue that people have disadvantage. I would argue that that is based in class and wealth disparity, because it exists across the board no matter what colour you are. If you're poor, your life is shit and you run into lots of problems. And wealth kind of falls into the class of privilege because you can afford better lawyers, you can afford better schools and so on. Question whether it's earned or not, that kind of depends on circumstances. It's a lot more difficult. But you get nothing simply by virtue of being white. Okay? No one gives you a fat sack of cash the moment you're born. Here's your white male privilege, enjoy it. It does not happen. By using the language of privilege, you are being accusatory. Okay? You're saying to people, you have something great and wonderful and unfair to everybody else. But to them, you know, their life is as shit as anybody else's. Okay? So when you throw that accusation at them, what you're doing is creating another Trump voter. So don't fucking do it if you want to create any solidarity, any change, because all you're doing is accusing people and alienating them, because they know that they don't have any special privileges. If white people were given the right to, I don't know, shoot one black person with complete, you know, legal immunity in their lifetime, that would be an example of white privilege. If you were given a fat sack of cash, the moment you were born just because you were white. That would be white privilege. But this isn't the way it works. Okay? The disparities in our societies pretty much boil down to class, wealth, and the inability to advance on the social ladder due to the stratification of our societies based on class and wealth. That overlaps with race, and that's what seems to confuse people. But that's not what's going on. White people, simply by virtue of being white, do not have any privilege. Asian people, by virtue of being Asian, do not have any privilege. Our legal rights are the same. Our opportunities are constricted by our wealth and class and not by the colour of our skin. Stop using this divisive terminology and start looking for ways to bring people together. If you want to describe certain racial subgroups or whatever as being underprivileged, that's a bit more acceptable. Privilege still isn't probably the term you want to use. It would be less advantaged, perhaps, or disadvantaged, even better. That's a good way to describe it. It's non-accusatory. It's saying, you know, these people need help. That's a much better way of going about it. But this pseudo-academic claptrap, this redefinition of terms when it comes to privileges and isms, and a lot of other things, to be honest, it's dishonest, it's crap, it undermines your own efforts, presuming you want to make the world a more equal and better place, and you should fucking stop it. So please, fucking stop it!